Now that the car is running and it's going to be a usable slot car, we're going to move on to our next endeavor, and that is to actually install lights in this car. Not only headlights, but taillights as well. So let's crack her open and show you what I got planned. The body. This is where all the lighting is going to be hooked into. And let's pop out this interior just really quick. Here. Again, the Slot Technic chip is pretty sweet because it's just plug and play. There are 3 plugs here for 3 different lights. You have your headlights, your brake lights / taillights, and you have a third lighting option, which is another brake light / taillight. I read directions, or not directions, but in the directions, there was a comment that you could use this to make like a flashing tailpipe or an exhaust look. I don't think it works directly from this without some kind of programming or some other chip. I don't know. I'm not messing with it, guys. We're just going to do headlights and brake lights, taillights, what have you. That's what I want to do with this. So it's fantastic part is plug and play. So that's the easy part, right? So we set that aside for now. The hard part is going to be, of course, running our lights into this body. The nice thing about part of this is the whole front headlight assembly pops out as one unit. And as you can see, I've already been playing around. I have one light installed here real quick. Let me show you. I have this little tester pack hooked up here, and well, there's your headlight. Once everything's soldered together, you won't have that flickering, but again, it's just a little tester pack. But that's what's going to look like. And no, I'm not going to put another light in there. I think it's just a little bit too much wiring for this little car, to be honest with you, to be able to tuck everything in. So anyways, that's what the headlight's going to look like. We're going to have to remove this light pod from this side, drill it out like I did this one, and we're going to start gluing things together. And yes, unfortunately, there's going to be some soldering involved on this project here. First thing we need to do is remove this headlight pod, and it's just melted in the little stub here in the back. Somebody just scrapes off with your finger here a little bit. Actually, I'll take a little file here just real quick. So we can pop that out now without poking my finger too hard. Alright, looks like I'm going to have to break out a little drill to get this done. So basically I just grabbed a drill bit here. One that's about this, roughly the same size as the back of this little post. There we go, boom, it's out. See, pretty easy. Now you can see in the back of this light, this is a solid light. Well, actually this is a lens in here, and it's cupped on the inside because I've already done the other side, so I know this. I didn't know that at first, but I'm going to have to cut this little piece of plastic tab off first, and then I'm going to have to drill from the back and hopefully pop this lens out without, well, messing it up. This other lens, I don't know if you can see, but I kind of scratched it because, again, I didn't realize that this was a separate lens. Now, if the lens doesn't pop out, fantastic, then I don't have to glue it back in, but if it does, well, that's what we have canopy glue for. This glue is clear, made for clear parts. Again, I'll link in the description if you need something like that. So, side cutters. Gandhi. I am going to take a file and try to file this a little bit flatter. If I can get a little closer with the side cutters first. Hold on just one second. Nope. Only because I don't want to try drilling on a, well, basically on a mountainside. I want a nice flat surface to start our drill bit on. Now that I have this little nub filed flat, we are going to start drilling out the back of this light pod. It's going to be a very careful, very slow process. I'm actually going to start with a small bit first. That way I don't crack anything. So we'll start with this little one here just real quick. And just try to get it centered as best that you can. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're not actually going to put the light inside of this light pod, but we want it to be able to have the hole big enough to kind of set the LED diode in. And I'll show you what I mean here in just a minute. Alright, I got a decent enough hole started. Now we're going to go up to our next size bit. Now, how I choose the right size bit, I'm not worried about actual, 3/32, 1/16, whatever. I have this LED that I'm going to be using. And I know that I want the LED head just to sit inside of this little light pod. And I'm not actually putting this whole thing in there. So I'm going to grab just a drill bit that is approximately the same size of my LED head. This is about the size of this LED head. So we're going to drill this out until it goes all the way through. Here's a good example of a problem that you may run into. I went from a very small size drill bit to this size, and it is just catching, and it's not actually drilling, and it's twisting this in my hands. What does that mean? That means I want too far too fast with the sizes of the bits. So we're going to set this one aside. We're going to grab one that's about halfway between this size and what I started with, and we're going to start with that one first. Then we'll come back to this, and hopefully it'll be open a whole lot better. Here we go. Here's our smaller bit. Yeah, that definitely is able to drill into it. I need to put some oil on this thing, don't I? Okay, it's opened, and I actually did it again because I wasn't paying attention, and I put a little bit of a mark on the lens. Oh boy. Well, at least they match, right? Don't do what I do, guys. Pay better attention. Don't do it behind a camera like I am talking to people, because then you can pay better attention. I use that as an excuse. See how I did that? Alright, now we have our larger bit, so let's see if we can open this up just a little bit better now. Now we'll take our little LED and let's see if it just like sits in there. And if it does, which it does, we're done with this part of the project as far as drilling out our headlight. The next step is going to be to actually super glue this into the back of this headlight bucket. Now we're going to do a little bit of pre-work here before we glue it in. We know that this LED is going to have to go into the back of this headlight bucket, and it's going to have to go through this little hole in the back of the frame for the headlights themselves. And right now it's sitting just linear, straight. We have to have this wire bent. So before you start gluing, it's always a good idea to get your LED the position you want it in. So I am just going to take, let's see, I think this might work, yeah, my little tweezers here, so I can get nice and close to the LED. I'm going to hold it against it and just bend the wires back, just like that. Now, that is about as close as I can get without starting to bend on the LED part itself, which I'm always afraid that that will break. It's a good bend. It's a good start. I will probably have to open up this hole like I did on this one here to get the wires to feed through to position the headlight bucket to where I want it. But for right now, it's time to glue it up. And I don't like to just dab glue directly onto projects if I can help it. I like to have a little bit more control in that. That's why I use the piece of scrap and scrap and you know what I mean. That way we can have a little bit better control. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this. My head's in the shot. I apologize. We're going to position it where we want it. We're going to put a little glue on it. Now I want a lot of glue. There's no doubt. I want this to stay, but I don't want to squirt it on and just have it seeping down inside and potentially fogging up the glass on the other side. And that should be that. It is glued, as you can see. But now we're going to wait for it to dry. And just real quick, while the glue is drying, let's check out the headlight. How cool is that? Now you see how it lights up the back side? Once this glue has dried, I'm going to come back in with a black paint marker and paint all of that black. That's what I did with this one. That way it'll help keep light from coming back into the car and looking, well, fake. So we'll do that once this is dry, then we'll continue on with the installation process. Well, as you can see, this light pod has been glued in. I did paint it black with the magic marker. I didn't figure I need to show all that because, well, that's pretty simple. Magic marker, or actually it was a paint pen, and super glue. Not a real hard rocket science there. I have trimmed my wires to length. And now, well, now comes the part that nobody likes doing, including myself, and that is soldering. When dealing with LEDs, you'll see you got a copper color here and a non-copper color. Just so you know, the copper color is 99% of the time is the anode. Anode is positive. So you want to keep your copper colors together. These LEDs here, they look like they're just bare wires, but they are not. They are a very thinly coated wire. Only the tips from the factory, when you first get them, let me show you here real quick what I'm talking about. The very tips, as you can see, are different colored there. Those are bare. So when you trim them, you're going to have to take something to scrape them. I just take a razor blade, and I kind of like hold this in my thumb, and I just scrape to scrape off the coating to expose the wire. So now I explained all that, which was boring. We're going to tin the ends of these longer wires here real quick. Now that I have the ends of these longer wires tinned with our solder, as you can see here, I've placed these two together. These are the negative wires for the LEDs, and hopefully if this works like it's supposed to, I'm just going to smush these together as best I can. I can just touch this, kind of bring it into it. Not pretty at all, but it's done. See if they both still work. Let's see here. This is my negative side. This is my positive side. Oh. There we go. Yes, if I held them tight, they would work. See, look at that. We have working headlights, folks. How cool is that? The next step is to solder on our power wire for our Slot.it chip. And don't forget to put on your shrink tubing before you solder these, or you'll be desoldering and putting it on. And yes, I have done that many times because I forget. Again, hopefully there's enough solder on here that I'm going to be able to just sit this on there and, well, just be able to solder it right in. Remember, positive anode or copper side, at least for this particular LED set that I have. I grabbed another of my little helping hands here. Folks, I'll put a link in the description to this base. This comes with 4 of these magnetic. I'll show you real quick. These magnetic little clips, and oh buddy, these things come in handy. But let's get back to doing what we were doing, and that is soldering. Finally got it done. Oh boy, was that a pain in the butt. Yeah, what I should have done, which I ended up doing to this one, which I might have to do this one, is I actually twisted these two wires together first before I soldered them. Live and learn, right? Like I said, I'm not a solderer. Let's try to get this last one done real quick. Let's see if I can actually do it without having to, you know, do a lot of extra soldering in. I ended up twisting these wires together and putting a little solder on them and a little solder on this wire. So hopefully well, it's on there. Don't know how well it's on there. We're about to find out. Well, they work. They're working. Okay, it's good enough for me. So let's put the heat shrink tubing on and reinstall it in the car. Well, as you can see here, we have our lights finished. And yes, I checked them real quick. They do work, which is pretty awesome. Next step is to install them in the shell. And this lighting package is pretty cool. Well, not the lighting package, the actual lights from the car themselves. It's pretty cool. They just kind of like pop in just like that, and that's how they sit. Now what I'm going to do, because I don't like how loose this is, especially now that I have some wiring in here, now we're going to do some wiring management. Basically, I'm just going to be tucking these around, and I'm going to get some gaffer's tape and tape it up in here where I want it. Not a big deal, nothing really to show, right? Just wire management. We all know how to do that. As you can see, I took a little piece of the gaffer's tape here and I just taped in my headlight pods so they won't be rattling loose. And I just kind of pushed my wires up in here where I think that I want them. And I'm going to throw some more tape, some more of this great gaffer's tape. I love this tape, folks. Like I have mentioned, I believed him earlier in this video, this stuff is a little pricey, but a big roll of stuff will last us modelers pretty much a lifetime. In that previous life, I was doing wedding photography, and I used this to tape down the cords to my lights. And I had to have a good tape that was very sticky, but would not leave back any type of adhesive residue because, you know, we couldn't ruin somebody's floors, right? And this stuff is made just for that. That's why it's called gaffer's tape. It's used in the movies. Gaffers use it, and it's really good stuff. It sticks really super well. And it's almost like a cloth tape, so it's good tape, guys. Just get some, okay? Okay. All right, our front lights are installed. Our lights are working, the pod is in. Next step is to install some rear taillights. This is going to be a little tricky simply because we have all this exposed framework here. And if I just threw an LED in there, well, that's going to look kind of crappy, I think, with just the exposed wires. So what I have done is I have taken a piece of tubular styrene. It was white. Again, I took my paint marker and I painted it one end black. And the plan is to run the wiring through this black tube. Hopefully it will hide it and just make it a little less obvious to, you know, anybody besides us that knows what we're looking for. Nice thing about this car is this whole rear section comes apart, so I can pop it off. I can just work on this without the body being in the way. Like our front lights, I have to put a bend in this light, but unlike our front ones, I don't want it as close to LED as possible, because if you can see on this little light bar back here, these are a nice red clear plastic, and the goal is to get this little red LED centered in between these two little tabs right here. That way it will help to illuminate this light. All right, now I've turned my studio light away so that you can hopefully see this glow a little bit better. But if I have this running through the tube and I have it bent like this, I'm able to get this against my little, this is going to be a little tricky here, folks. I'm trying to hold everything. But if I have it up against the center of the light, kind of like so, I'll kick it on. I think it's much brighter in person than it is on this camera, but you know what? That really most definitely works for me. All right, now let's get this thing installed. This is just a real quick mock-up of kind of what it's going to look like once I have these lights all soldered up and glued in. I'm going to have that light right against the back of that. That's pretty much what it's going to look like when we have it all glued in. I am going to be smart and I'm going to get all of this soldered together outside of the car first. Then we'll come back and we will super glue it into place. Before we go and put any soldering on here, you can see I've got the lights dimmed. I cannot stress enough the importance of constantly checking your LEDs just to make sure you have not broken one while handling them and that everything's still wired correctly. And I'm very, very careful to make sure that we always make sure that our LEDs are working. As you can see, they are still working, which means I can go ahead and solder this joint. This time, you can see I did things a little bit differently. I actually just twisted all the wires together before soldering them. This is the best way to do this. We're going to cover everything up with heat shrink anyway, so it will cover all this ugliness up. Doesn't take a whole heck of a lot of solder. Sorry for the bouncy table there. That's it. Soldering job is done. I'm going to check my lights one more time. This time I'm going to check it from this end, this male end of our fitting. And just real quick, I want to show you what I'm using. This is just a battery pack that came out of, I believe, some old Christmas decoration. It takes a couple, I think it takes 3 AA batteries in here. And this is so handy. You can buy something like this off Amazon, but I'm sure if you're like me, you've got dozens of old Christmas ornaments or other ornaments that use packs like this that, you know, are no longer, you know, being used or broken. Just remember to reuse stuff. Try to always reuse stuff. Don't always need to buy things, right, guys? And so we know that's negative. This is positive. Let's pull our lights over here. Get in there. There you go. Okay. Well, the truth, right? Oh, we got lights. Yep, they work. Good, fantastic. Now I'm going to take my soldering iron and just put some heat shrink tubing on these wires and protect them. Now that we have all of the wiring done for our tail lights, it's time to install them. And I just kind of got a general idea of how they're going to be by bending them. And as I said, they're going to sit in here kind of like this. I'm going to glue them in. I'm only going to glue one in. I'm going to show you because I'm going to have to hold it for a little while. I want a different direction with attaching these lights. I still use these tubes, but the super glue just wasn't going to cut it. There was not enough surface area for this glue to adhere these pipes to these pieces of plastic. As a matter of fact, I was only able to get them to glue to these little sidebars on this side here, and I just know that that is not going to be enough. So we went back to the good old-fashioned gaffer's tape, and I've got taped in there. I don't think these are going to be going anywhere. Once I install this back into the shell of the car and run my wires, I'll tape those down as well, which will also help keep everything from moving around. But I think, is it great? Is it perfect? Of course it's not. It's homemade crap. But it's my homemade crap. Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. Now I just need to figure out how I'm going to run these wiggy wires around, because we do still have this that's going to be sitting in here up against all of that. Kind of like that. And things are falling apart already. Oh boy. Let me get this together and we'll show you how it kind of looks. I have my interior pressed back in. All my wiring has been ran. There's our IR sensor, our leads for our pickups, and the lead for the motor. Now, let's hope everything fits in here. I think it should. These wires are pretty stinking small here that I have left over. So I'll get her together and let's get her on the track. Well, the car is on the track. Let's turn the track on and see if the car lights up. Hey, there's the lights. Let's see if they can turn them on and off. That's pretty cool. Now let's go around back and check the tail lights. And here we go for the tail lights. Oh, heck yeah. Off and on. Sweet. Next thing we need to do is see if the brake function works on these taillights. Yep, look at that. Alright, well, we saw that the lights worked in this car, but let me tell you something real quick. This is kind of a part 2 of the first video. I had to go back into this car and make some major changes to get this thing to run well. The biggest change I made was, well, I pulled the interior out. That interior was just pushing on all these wires, making everything super tight, and my guide was just like, it wouldn't hardly turn. And as I showed you before, this wheel here, was stuck up against a piece of wire on this headlight. It was a mess. Plus, weights were all wrong, and this car handled like crap. It actually handled worse than it did when I just put the chip in with no lights and nothing else, and it was, I made a mess of it. Let's put it that way. Anyhow, what I did though is, like I said, I pulled the interior out. I redid some of my wiring as far as putting it nice and tight and neatening it up, and used that gaffer's tape, taped it all up real well. I took a lot of the weight out of this car because it was kind of butt end heavy, and it was horrible driving. I just put a little bit of lead in the center of the car, the chassis, and I put the Slot.it chip on top of that. I used some blue tack for that, and that's about it. And the car is much more balanced now, and it runs, well, actually I should say this fly, it truly now flies. So let's check it out and see if I can keep her on the track, because it's so fast. All right, folks, what do you think about this little fly Porsche 917 now? We took a relatively inexpensive car, at least it was for me. I picked it up real inexpensive on eBay for like 25 bucks, and I threw way too much money at it to make this thing run on my digital track. Again, this was an analog car, and I knew that when I bought it. I knew I would have to do something to make it work on my Carrera Digital. I like the challenge, and I love this livery. I love this car. Now, you saw my first video. If you watch it, if not, go back and watch it. We did all of the mechanical work, if you will, to make this car run better. But I kind of messed it up, and I had to go back and fix it. And I already explained to you how I did that by taking the interior out and cleaning up the wires and all that good stuff. And it runs so much better now. And the lights, folks, these were cheap LED lights off of that Amazonian website. As a matter of fact, if you check out the description below, you will see I put links to everything I put into this car that you can go pick up yourself. And some of the links, especially for like the lights and stuff, anything off Amazon, I am an affiliate member with Amazon. What that means is if you guys go there and buy something, Amazon gives me a few pennies to say thank you for getting people to spend their hard-earned money on that website. And it doesn't cost you guys anything extra. It's all on Amazon's side. So if you want to buy the stuff, help me out, folks. That's what I use to keep, well, this show going. You will notice too that we did not have to put any resistors on these LEDs. I know some people who know about electronics are probably saying, dude, where's the resistors at? Well, I didn't know it. It doesn't say it in the directions, but apparently the Slot.it chip makes it to where you don't need resistors, let me put it to you that way. And how I tested that was, well, I wired up one of these LEDs, just twist-tied it all together, threw it on the chassis, threw it on my track, turned my track on. You know, it was on the Slot.it chip, turned the track on, and I let it sit for literally hours on end. And I figured if it wasn't going to pop within the first 5 seconds and it lasted for several hours, it must have something on the chip that, well, keeps the resistance low enough to not blow your LEDs. So that is pretty cool. Again, guys, I mean, this thing is just amazing now. And yes, I'm not a great magnetless driver. I have Carrera Digital. All my cars besides this one now are all Carrera cars, plus the one more I think I showed you in the last video I'm going to be doing next, that little Datsun 510. So I'm not used to driving without magnets, and I am actually hooked. I like driving this thing without a magnet. I love how the rear end came out and it slid all over the place. It was fun. It took a lot more finesse to drive this car. And you know, they say you can feel a car when you're driving it. This is the first time I've actually ever felt a slot car when I was driving it. And it's not like feeling it when you're in a car driving it, but you can just feel the nuances. You know what it's going to do on your track, and you can use your controller to control that. And that is kind of the feeling. You can feel the nuances of the car. A car with magnets in it, I never believed it, but it's true. They'll go, but when they go out of sync, buddy, they come off the track. There's no, hey, guess what? I'm getting ready to let loose. No, it's just stuck, gone. This here will let you know. Without a magnet, hey, I'm getting ready to swing out. Slow down. That's how you really can feel a car driving. Anyways, I rambled on about that. I'm sorry, folks. That's not what you're here for. Like I said, links in the description for everything that you might need to do this yourself. If you just want to do the lights, I don't know what you could do without a digital chip. You would probably need to definitely put in some form of resistor and wire them directly to your pickups. I'm sure that would probably work, just like an old-fashioned HO scale track that we used to have as kids, that the cars had lights on them. That's how I'm sure they did them. So you'd have to play around with resistors to get that to work without blowing your lights. But with the Slot.it chip, it was pretty easy, all plug-and-play stuff, as you saw. I don't know what else to say, guys. This thing is fun. This is my new favorite car. I love 917s. I love the Golf livery, and I'm going to be running this thing a lot now. And as always, folks, thank you for spending your time with me. God bless and take care, everyone.